Greetings, I am Lies and I use she, her.
And I am Scandal, and I use they, them.
And let's play a game together! Alrighty guys, so we are here for the second round, going for the second ending that we wanted to show you in our playthrough of Meaty in the Flesh, working up to...
the release of Pyreside Waltz, because yes, it now has a name!
So,
it used to, so apparently it was just sort of, it was a nickname, was to call it Motya Awakening, but its official name is Pyreside Waltz from this point on, we're actually going to just call it Pyreside Waltz. It has also been released. It was released on 5/17/2022.
So the demo is available to download for free from, itch?
Yes.
And you guys can check it out, and we are going to be doing a playthrough of it and checking out whatever we find interesting about it. Well, just one
Once we're done
with this. So we're going to follow this up immediately with that, but we are so excited to play this game again, and it's some bee husband time.
Husband!
So we have set ourselves up right near the beginning of the first choice concerning the arc, and we're going to go in from there.
Alright, here we go. So time to load. And then time to go.
Go. Are we going? Going.
I roll my eyes while my head's ducked. I haven't heard these rumors myself, but it sounds silly. I've never heard of anyone eating anything other than water and salt with additives, much less sucking the energy out of other people.
No way. That's so creepy.
Right, but it makes sense, doesn't it? With how gruff this guy usually is.
Yeah. He always feels kind of off, you know?
Maybe that's why he has the star, to lure in victims. The two of them laugh raucously. I just tighten my bundle across my shoulders and ignore whatever else they're saying. It's all nonsense. Niarg shouldn't have to put up with this stuff. He's a good guy. Hopefully these idiots won't actually say this stuff to his face.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Fortunately, a small cluster of excited customers exit the store the next moment, and I take the chance to slip inside, murmuring that I'm just here to make a delivery and I'll be out soon.
Receiving all the dirty looks as everyone go, are you cutting in line?
Inside the store, I manage to weave my way past the crowds of people looking at bees, and I find Niarg near the back of the store, where he mans the counter alone. All of his tentacles are hard at work, managing 6 different tasks at once, and his teeth are bared as he breathes in deep, rasping puffs. He must be stressed.
And also working real hard.
Right? Hey, Niarg.
Hello, Bill.
He doesn't even turn my way. Not that I can blame him. He's busy dealing with a customer on one side, packing up a bottle of honey with one set of tentacles, and soothing an agitated bee with 2 others. The smell of honey in the air is almost dizzying, stirred up by the constant movement of people in the store, and I can't help but take a deep breath before busying myself on doing my bundle.
Just imagining this one bee going, so busy in here.
Ah! Right, this might be
Stress.
Busy day today, huh?
Sure is.
His tentacles swiftly wrap a bottle of honey in fabric, then tie a piece of twine into a bow to secure it. His customer thanks him profusely before leaving with their purchase in hand, babbling excitedly to their friend about how tonight will be a special treat.
I'm just like, brown burlap packages tied up with strings.
That's true.
Seeing everyone happy about their purchases makes it worth it, though. I love seeing the smile illustration still, every time.
So happy. I still have a little tongue sticking out. It makes me so happy. His voice is as gruff as ever, but the corners of his lips quirk just a fraction. He really does seem happy when his customers are happy. Seems like it. I hurry to pull a package of salt from my bundle, double-checking my notes to make sure I have the right packet for him, then lay it on the counter. I'd hand it to him, but all of his tentacles are occupied packaging 2 different orders at the same time.
I also love how Vil doesn't even mention how many people must be talking to him, talking to each other. Like, both of them are just super work focus mode because the shop is this busy, and the only way he can know what everyone's orders are and do these exchanges is by people talking and that kind of thing. And I love the extreme focus on work, and that it was set up so clearly in the story that you know this is basically a clear exchange between two people amidst an extremely busy environment.
And I really do still okay, so one of the biggest reasons that, like, I'm gonna say again that I really enjoy this particular route is just because I feel like Vil and Niarg have so much in common in that way. They're both typically, like, pretty polite, more or less. They like to do their work, and they have a good time at it, and it's just, I don't know, it seems to suit them. And they also then know how to help and support each other, which I appreciate.
I enjoy that they seem to have, to me it feels like there's natural chemistry there. So in the way that people will talk about when you cast people together or whatever, some of them have chemistry, some don't, even if they're playing the roles essentially the same.
Right.
I feel like there's definite chemistry between Vil and Niarg.
And
that Vil is like, I like you.
I'll leave this here for you, alright? With how busy the store is, it would probably be best if I don't take up too much of Niarg's time. I give a little nod and turn to leave when the touch of a tentacle against my shoulder stops me.
Vil?
He sounds serious. He always sounds a little serious, of course, but this feels different. Yes? There's a pause. Niarg's tentacles never stop moving, neatly processing and wrapping orders for customers standing on the other side of the counter, but the tentacle resting against my shoulder only squeezes slightly. He addresses a customer first, wishing them a nice day as he hands in their package before turning slightly towards me.
I also love that expression he had there where he looks hesitant.
A
He's kind of
little tentacle,
a
it's
little
so
bit like,
cute.
Can I even... If you could spare the time, would you mind helping me out a little?
I'm a little surprised. Not about the request itself. Any reasonable person would ask for help managing a store this busy, but because I've never seen Niarg ask anyone for help before. I can't help feeling a little flattered that he'd ask. That said, I need to think this over for a moment. Reaching back, I test the weight of my bundle with my hands, trying to gauge how much time I would need to deliver all of these before the end of the day. There aren't too many, and I should be able to get to them all in time as long as I rush a little bit. But they're also not terribly close together, and I know my pace slows as I grow tired near the end of the day. I don't have a lot of time to spare. On the other hand, use your friend, this feels like something important. Even if it's only a small favor that Niarg's asked of me, the fact that it's coming from someone so quiet and self-sufficient lends that simple request extra weight.
Actually, that feels a lot to me too. So I love how Vil describes the world and considers things so thoroughly. First response being, wow, I'm flattered, this is amazing, because I know who you are and what this basically, and this has meaning and weight to me, you know? But also then going but my work, because that's Vil's own priority.
Right.
And then the very thoughtful calculating of exactly what they need to know about their own job. And then the next step of basically going, but the quiet kid in class has spoke to me.
Oh no! Honestly though, okay, so there's another thing here that I wanted to point out that I appreciate in terms of writing. Like, I know for some people it's a little much at times, depending on how you've written the rest of the story, but I really do enjoy the fact that not only is Niarg shown to be quiet and self-sufficient and very capable, and very much an apt businessman, as it were, but also genuinely that Vil recognizes it and says it, so that you have that very clear understanding that this is what quiet and self-sufficient looks like. Because I cannot tell you, again, so like it's a personal fucking pet peeve of mine that I cannot handle actually how many stories, really, and not just visual novels do it.
Just
amazing
overall.
Stories in general. Just go, this character is this thing, and the story will tell you that, and the characters will tell you that, and the character that is supposed to be all those things is nothing but a fucking disaster. And I do not like it. I don't appreciate it, because I'm like, if they're supposed to be that thing, we should get time in understanding that and seeing that and really being able to soak that in, I feel like, or getting at least a moment so that all the rest of the stuff that falls apart doesn't just go, I feel like you all were just sort of talking out of your ass.
So I saw a neat example of this recently, and this is genuinely a pet peeve of my friends, and I appreciate it here. And I've definitely seen it before too, where it's they're said to be one thing and they never demonstrate it in front of anybody.
Yeah.
But there was somebody who was analyzing, and I don't know what show it was because I'd never seen it before. But a show where there's a lot of fighting and combat in it, right? Like, it's one of those high-action shows where every single episode that everybody's beating each other up, right?
All right.
And they said, here's this one character who's supposed to be the most badass, badass ever, but every single episode you see him have his ass beat by the big bad, right? The next big bad who's supposed to be bigger and badder than anyone has ever been before. And he's like, that could be powerful with everyone saying that he's so awesome and amazing. But we've never seen him be awesome and amazing once. All we've ever seen is him get his ass kicked. And so rather than people saying, top of his class, has won every fight ever, has been, a mixed martial artist for 30 years and has never failed, and then nothing but gets, completely destroyed every single episode, you need to see it and get invested in the behavior of the character. And this does that really well, I think.
And the thing is so there's not... I understand the concept of where you really can hold a suspension of disbelief and just trust in the author going, what I want to focus on is when they finally lost. That moment where, for example, they talk about what's fair, that hook that grabs you right in the beginning, when everything suddenly changes. Here's the murder at the very beginning of the book kind of thing. But sometimes, especially when you've had other stuff going on and then they introduce a character,
And in this case, it was a side character?
Yeah, and then you're just like,
have no connection.
I have no connection. I'm like, please show me a flashback, because honestly all I'm getting is just that you're stupid.
Additionally,
or inane or inept or whatever.
If you have no standard in the show for what the most awesome badass
I
looks
know!
like, not even for them, but at all, then it gets even harder. And so that's another thing.
Especially when the point of your show, in this particular case, I would say, is actually about how awesome and how badass people are. And so, so the thing is whenever I've seen shonen, so shonen are typically specifically about fighting. One of the things that I appreciate in stories that are about basically how powerful is McPowerfulson, right? Is that I really enjoy it when you actually see the person who is the most powerful. And you go, that is the most powerful, and then you can sort of understand the grade that everybody else is on, because otherwise, I have a big, I like DBZ, but I also will completely admit that its power system is completely stupid. Because it really is just oh no, this one's the most powerful, and oh no, this... it's really easy. It's such a very simple sliding scale of just oh, and here we're just going to adjust to this, and the numbers don't mean anything.
So,
it's
I was
really
going to say, what I'm going to say is that one of the best examples in my mind, and probably the best because it is satire, is the first season of One Punch Man.
Oh, yeah.
So, of just showing what the most powerful McPowerful looks like. But to get back to this, we've spent enough time with Vil learning what Vil's values are, learning what Vil cares about and what Vil notices, and what basically hard work and focus look like, so that when we hear Vil assigning these traits or these values to Niarg, it's clear that Vil is an attentive, thoughtful, observant, work-oriented person. And so their value system is something that is reasonable for them to be able to assess Niarg with. Because that's something that they have skill in, as opposed to someone who is basically your, bubblegum, airhead, comic relief character, then suddenly going, that character's the most skilled at whatever, and you're like, how would you know?
Yeah.
And in this case, Vil knows.
Absolutely. On the other hand, this feels like something important. Even if it's only a small favor that Niarg's asked of me, the fact that it's coming from someone so quiet and self-sufficient lends that simple request extra weight. What should I do? Should I help Niarg out for a bit, or should I apologize and get going?
Since this is Niarg's route, appreciation of the bee husband, we're gonna help.
We're gonna help Niarg out.
We are gonna do it.
I think it would be best if I spared a little time to help Niarg out. Pride, in part, makes the decision for me. If I stay, my schedule will certainly be tight, but I know that's not beyond my abilities. I know my delivery pace, and I'm well aware of what I'm capable of. Which, again, I love this going, if you missed it, Vil really was I have already assessed myself before, but here we go. I do have this decision. This is not a decision that I make lightly.
I do enjoy very strongly how much
Vil's a character!
Is a person, and also has clear, consistent values throughout the entire thing.
Yes.
It's very, very clear where Vil is going, has anything changed that has actually adjusted my personal interior resources?
Mm-hmm.
Has anything changed that has adjusted my time schedule? Is there anything in my environment that would make this more difficult? And then also being confident and comfortable in their own skills.
I also appreciate that the fact is, like, we get introduced to Vil, and Vil's extrapolations, even if sometimes they're a surprise, they seem reasonable.
They do.
Okay, so the thing that I'm like, I appreciate when authors really desperately want to have a character suddenly expose a trait or a thing that you just didn't know about, right? And it's a surprise, it's a shock. But most of the time, I've found, weirdly enough, it feels like a lot of people aren't able to actually connect you to what's going on. Particularly, like, if it's first person, or it's that character focused, right? You're focused on your main character. And I found that to be disappointing, but in this one, I still cannot express how much I love that you are connected to Vil, and you understand that even when something might be sort of like, oh, this seems like a weird choice for you, it makes sense. You understand Vil's process.
And Vil does share thoroughly that process. So in this space, it feels very much like we are, in fact, included in Vil's thoughts. There's been a lot of visual novels that we've played where choices or decisions or suddenly come up or happen, and we're like, why did that happen? If we're in the character's head, and they're always first-person ones, then why weren't we privy to this information?
Or as you're making the decision, why doesn't it come up of going, oh god, that reminds me of such and such, I'm doing this.
Why don't we get the exposition then and get brought in?
Yeah. Because it does make sense. Sometimes you make what is, quote, considered to be an irrational decision based on something you don't talk about, but you suddenly just say. If that makes sense.
But
like,
you realize
don't
it in your mind.
Yeah, and then you go, wait, hang on, what was the Hungarian incident?
Yes.
And suddenly you have intrigue. And then the person explains kind of as they probably go along, as they continue making that choice, of a sort of explaining to you, in a sort of roundabout way, the reader, what actually the, quote, Hungarian incident was.
For me, I very much like to be brought into a story.
I do too.
Yes.
I feel embarrassed about it later. Alright, if I use the excuse of a tight schedule to say no to Niarg here, I know I'd feel a little embarrassed about it later. After all, if Niarg is asking me to help him at this very important moment, I should do what I can to help him, especially if I know it's within my capabilities. I make the mistake of taking a deep breath. I forget this gets me kind of high. The dizzying scent of honey makes my head spin, and I'm frozen for a moment before I can gather my thoughts. I shake my head, take a shallower breath, shallower breath.
Accurate.
Then nod firmly. Alright, I can stay for a bit. If Niarg had eyes, I think he'd be blinking at me. As is, his own movements paused for a second, his tentacles caught halfway between their actions before abruptly resuming, as if Niarg wants to hide his surprise and hesitation.
Are you sure?
Of course. You might have to coach me on what to do, but I'm happy to help with whatever I can. I smile as I take off my bundle and stow it to the side beneath a counter, where it hopefully won't get trampled. Then I pull back the roomy folds of my cloak to free my hands. It's warm in here? I won't need to be so covered up, and I don't want anything to hinder my movements. Niarg looks like he needs all the help he can get, so I'd like to be as useful as possible. What should I do? One of Niarg's mouths licks its lips, and I hear the sound of several throats clearing.
Oh no, they said yes. What? I got this.
Okay.
Can you start by packaging up those bottles?
A tentacle gestures at a shelf, stacked with bottles of honey. A pile of pre-cut fabric pieces and a big roll of twine occupies a nearby table. I flash Niarg a grin, feeling the raw skin on my face crinkled from the gesture. It comes out slightly saccharine, but it feels rare for Niarg to ever seem pressured, so I want to be reassuring. Leave it to me!
Phil, 100% enthusiasm.
Yatta! Ganbate! I turn towards the shelf without waiting for a response, moving a big armful of bottles to the table so I have everything easily within reach. But faintly, I think I hear Niarg grunt. Thanks. The work ends up being a little harder than I expected. My hands are big and rough and calloused, perfect for finding purchase on the rough streets and spending long hours at a steady gallop. but I'm less used to work like this. The twine, especially, turns out to be a challenge. Wrapping the bottles in fabric is easy enough, but tying the twine off into neat ribbons is difficult. He has a process, and I want to make sure that it looks exactly like his process.
I appreciate that. Also, with very little training, you just look at what he's doing and try to do it.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate that with his tentacles, without any articulate fingers or anything, he can do this.
That is pretty
cool. I
cool.
would love to freaking see him in action. I am going to here, though, point out in the writing, which I haven't done very many times, about the reuse of descriptive words, which has happened several times in this scene.
It has...
Where we've got rough and rough immediately after each other. And that is one of the only things that I think, due to the studio being, one, their first game, and two, only 2 people involved, had some trouble with. Because when you're in a space and you're just trying to get the writing down, a lot of times you're like, the one descriptive word can get stuck.
Oh yeah, that has always been a consistent thing about this, is that when they were writing this, there is very much you can kind of tell either some days where they were just like, I am on point, I'm using different words, and other times you're just like, it's little, and it's another little, and then the little.
Yeah,
No.
And sometimes, it's the same descriptive word over and over again. And the sentences still flow nicely, and the story still clearly moves. But yeah, it's like, it's just no synonyms.
It's a little redundant.
And
but that's okay. Like, I still like the story. The thing is like, this world is always very engaging to me whenever we play it. And we have played it actually a couple of times, and
it's been good every time.
I just appreciate it, like mistakes happen, and that's one of those things. I also don't really expect them to ever go back and fix that, so sometimes I feel bad about bringing it up, because it is one of those where sometimes you do want to be like, author and developers, you guys, I love you. I want you to go on and do other things, because as much as I would also love to see this, quote, edited, I also want you to spend more time doing other things.
New
content. I feel like that's sometimes a thing that people forget, is that continuing content is really exhausting. And also, you make more errors sometimes the more that you continue editing or interacting with the world. You can start basically doubling up, or messing with plot holes, or making bigger ones in areas where they didn't really exist. Just start sounding even more redundant because it's just the same thing over and over again.
I would say, or go the other way of a little bit too flowery.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't fit the general feel of everything because you're trying so hard to diversify it. I would say, but I've seen...
Putting things down is okay, though.
It is. I've seen a lot of people who go back trying to make their earlier games, like, perfect, if you will.
Yeah.
I say in, like, large quotes. And they spend so much time on, basically, their older projects that they get very little work done on their newer projects.
And they get really depressed.
And they often get very depressed going,
I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'll never change. I'm always having to fix all these things. And I'm like, even some people don't realize it, where I'm like, your old game is actually holding you back because you are so afraid of just letting it be.
And it's one of those things. I only really point it out in the sense of, if you're listening and you notice this, yes, it is there. And also in the sense of, it is okay to have these, but they are generally not ideal.
No, not even slightly.
But it's also something that if you're writing on your own can happen to you, which is why it's good to go back and read it. And one of the really easy ways to find it that I've learned when I've done editing on my own and for other people is to read it out loud. Because a lot of times when you're reading in your own head, your brain will smooth things together in a more even way, especially if you're having any kind of like essentially like situationally predictive reading.
So my big thing also is that I want to add on is, for me, is that my brain actually gives me a tone, an emotional feeling. You're sort of swept up in the experience, where sometimes you go, yeah, and I'm just doing this thing, and then you go back and you're like, oh my god, it was deeply repetitive, incredibly redundant, it was incredibly wordy, this was... Why? And then you come back to it and you're like, it's because I was having a good time. It doesn't mean that your time was bad. It just means that you were so caught up that there is, in that way, there is the basics of writing that you do kind of forget, going like, yeah, that's unnecessary, that's too much.
And so what I was going to say is, if you're ever trying to edit your own work and you're having any trouble with it,
have someone read it to you.
I would say, or try reading it out loud yourself if you don't have anyone, because it will force you to hear the words differently than in your head. Alright. Difficult.
Ribbons.
Difficult.
The first few packages I hand over to Niarg take a little longer than I'd like, and I noticed Niarg sparing 2 tentacles to wrap a few bottles himself, in order to keep pace with the orders coming in. When each package takes me 2 or 3 tries to tie a proper ribbon, I can feel frustration starting to seep through me. It must show in my actions, because after finishing up another package, Niarg briefly lays a tentacle over my hand.
Also observant.
I know.
You're doing fine. It's harder if you rush. I have thousands of hours at this. Do not try and be like me.
It's okay, yeah. Which is actually, though, a good thing, being like, I observe that you're struggling. It's okay. You don't need to hurry. Any support you give me
is better than none.
Because that's one more pair of hands that I don't have, and I have a lot of hands, as it were.
It's true.
Niarg's voice is a low rumble, finishing off with a click of his teeth. It's neither gentle nor quiet, fighting to be heard over the din in the store.
I do like that they continue to remember how many people are there. It's really nice.
It is really nice. Still, the way his tentacle pats at my wrist once, twice before returning to work is calming. It helps me figure out how to approach this work.
Aha.
Take a deep breath and calm down, or focus harder on the work. Honestly, considering the calm down part of being like, just relax, take a second, it's okay. It sounds like take a deep breath and calm down in this particular thing. Like, Vil, that's because that will help you focus harder.
I think for Vil, pausing and recentering is going to be one of the best choices for them. Yes, and would be a very natural reaction to this.
Yes. Like Niarg said, rushing won't solve anything. I need to calm down. Eyes closed, I take in a slow, deep breath.
Careful not to get too high on the fumes of honey.
Aha! Breathing in slowly like this, the sweet scent of honey flows into and over me like a warm blanket, settling heavily over my flickering nerves. It helps me calm down immediately. All right. I open my eyes and look towards Niarg, giving him a small nod. He's already back to focusing on his own work, but I think I spot a pair of lips quirking into a slight smile at my response.
I really love how Niarg has no distinctive necessarily face. He's all face. And it's implied that even, like, around the back or the sides, like, that's just what he looks like all around. And yet Vil is like, and again, no eyes, but he clearly has sensory input of what's going on in what we would consider to be the visual field. And I love how much attention Vil pays to him and how much he can take in. But again, I'm going to mention, like, I think it's really fun how clearly the scene illustrates that you are in a massively packed environment and yet still sharing a pretty intimate personal moment. And so you have that experience of having a little bubble of intimate connection in the midst of everything. And I think it's really neat.
It's like working retail, wrapping packages.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh dear. I think I can handle it. Thanks. I think I'm getting used to the work. It should be easier once I fall into a nice rhythm. As I return to focusing on the task at hand, even the murmurs from the crowd eventually fade to a low buzz in the distance. After a while, my hands start moving automatically. Pick up a bottle, wrap it in fabric, bring the twine around it, tie off a neat ribbon. However, you still walk yourself through your process. It is automatic, but it is still an automatic thought, too. I was going to say, Vil is so process-oriented. It's so relatable, though,
it's
too.
It's super relatable. So one of the things about this game was immediately I was like, Vil is relatable to me.
You've worked in manufacturing, you understand. Like, even as what, like, so we've talked about this before between my friend and myself on this channel numerous times, of very much where even as much as I would, me personally, I would get complimented on, wow, you're really good at focusing, blah, 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 whatever, and even my friend as well, very much, both of us. But it was one of those where I'm like, oh my god, you do not realize how much though I'm still focusing.
How much we both have serious internal lists and processes and checks and double checks for doing everything we're doing. And I write shit down, and I really do have for anything that I'm doing that is a complex task, it is a series of steps that relate to each other. And so if I get interrupted in the center of it, I have to go back to the beginning and check it all again, or I'm not sure if I missed something.
Right. Unless you basically have an algorithm for that, which is what I would work on, for being interrupted, because frequently I would be.
I was saying, and it's one of those things where either you have a couple of checkpoints that you can pick up on and go, if this is done, it means this is done. I was going to say, but it is all of those kinds of things of using a process that has cues so you know where you are. Yeah.
Relaxed by Niarg's advice and the sweet scent in the air, I find myself working peacefully, my mind wandering comfortably. I even find the time to soothe a stray bee that comes bumbling up to rub against my side.
Bee, I am lost.
Bwah! Niarg doesn't have to tend to packaging bottles after a while, leaving the tasks to me so he can focus on tending to the customers.
One of the things I love about this scene also is that you have bees in cages, but you also have bees roaming around. And I get very much that impression of, you know, like one of those really good pet stores where everything is clean and tidy and the animals have proper environments. And you get the ones that live there and that belong to the owner, and so you have them like wandering across the tops of cages and between the aisles and the shelves and things. And so I think I always feel like that's what's going on with these bees. And it just makes me really happy. And that also that despite the crowding and even some, you know, judgmental and potentially like, rumor-mongering customers, you still get the, it's a safe environment for bees to be loose in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I like.
Despite the bustle of customers, the atmosphere of the store is warm and comfortable, and I find myself feeling right at home. At some point, a couple of bees had wandered over to inspect me, then fallen asleep at my side. I can feel their fuzzy bodies vibrate slightly with their rapid breaths, the presence cushioning warm and soft around me.
Just being surrounded by fluffy bee fur.
Yay! Yay! Almost absorbed in the moment, I almost lose track of time. It's a gentle touch to the shoulder that grabs my attention, and I look up to see Niarg turn towards me. But we're gonna have to talk to Niarg in the next one!
Oh my gosh, I love this bit. Okay.
Oh, it's so good.
Like, I don't know how to explain that if you're really into the appearance of monsters, and therefore Niarg is not a hot boy, that he is just so good in so many ways that are not the traditional hot monster kind of thing.
Right.
And this route is totally worth it.
I mean, to me, it really is just about, like, the character. And I understand where, like, visuals are important to some people, for sure. But it's also, like, the way that I just, like, it's written so well. I just like this character a lot, okay?
Like I said, I find his visuals compelling anyways, but again, if someone's looking for a more traditional hot monster, he's incredibly inhuman looking.
Oh, yeah.
And that can be, again, like, we have found from just seeing other people approach this game that no one picks Niarg for the most part. Like, I've never seen anyone else run his route. And I think it's because they're concerned about a couple of the warnings, but also because, again, he's not your sort of conventionally attractive monster. And, again, it's such a really beautiful surprise to go through his route, and I think you guys will love it.
I think you'll like it a lot, too. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Please feel free to go check out the demo and even the trailer for the Pyreside Waltz.
Yes.
Pyreside Awakening.
Yes! Motya Waltz.
We do appreciate very much Hal and Miru's efforts.
Yes.
We're so glad for them that they got their demo out, and we are also really excited about some news for Hal's life, but, you know, that's for something else.
And we are super excited to play it when we get to it.
Please also feel free to go check out all of their links in the description. I have tried to make sure that the new demo, basically, link is there. I've tried to also make sure that the trailers are there. Please go check out all of their personal stuff as well.
Also, their Tumblr has previews of all the characters with their live 2D, and it's really cool.
It's so neat looking. I'm so excited to actually be able to play it. We have it downloaded, but we haven't touched it. So I'm like...
We're not even going to touch it until we're doing it live, like, basically right in front of people.
Yes. We're probably just going to stream it. It'll be great. Anyway, so thank you very much, everybody, though, for joining us. If you like what we do, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. It actually does a lot for us in regards to the YouTube algorithm. It also will help expose this game more, and also maybe help Pyreside Waltz get out there a little bit more for this small indie studio. Please also feel free to go check out our Ko-fi, our Patreon, and our Twitch. The links are in the description as well. And we would actually love to see you at our Twitch, because we do stream the games.
It's true, and we definitely talk to everyone who talks.
Yes. And I have been Scandal.
And I have been Lies. And it was great playing with you. Bye!